Is your mother-in-law driving you banana cakes? Welcome back to Ask Dr. SAIRA, and today's question has to do with mother-in-laws. So this is the show where I answer your questions about psychology, spirituality, relationships. Today's question, here we go, is from Chanda, and the question is, my mother-in-law and I are always bickering, and I can't stand it anymore. We live together, and my kids love her, but she's always picking on me. How can we get to a truce when she doesn't think she is doing anything wrong? I'm going to read that again. My mother-in-law and I are always bickering and I can't stand it anymore. We live together and my kids love her, but she's always picking on me. How can we come to a truce when she doesn't think she's doing anything wrong? Oh, Chanda. This is a really common question that I hear from many of my clients. It's actually something that we work on in session, is how do we actually work with family members who we live with in the same home, but there's some sort of a conflict or tension or discomfort. Now, the mother-in-law dynamic is really common, especially in Indo-Canadian cultures where there's a story, right, around the son and the daughter-in-law and what the relationship is supposed to be and what the mother-son relationship is supposed to be. So there's some complexity here. So let's unpack it, okay? Traditionally speaking, and we're talking, maybe 2 or 3 generations ago, at least in the Indian culture, and it could be in other cultures as well, there was arranged marriages. And so, a man and a woman usually getting together, their families would kind of decide, and then they would get together and they would get married. Now, that was not a love bond necessarily. The idea was that you meet and then you get to know each other and you fall in love and you raise a family. But what happens is, now think about this woman who's being put in this situation with this man that she doesn't know, expected to bond with, expected to be intimate with. You just have to kind of go through that. But then you have a baby. Right? Then you have a baby and suddenly all of these love needs are getting met. Because maybe they were getting met with your arranged marriage husband, maybe they weren't. But when the baby comes, suddenly your tank is full, right? Because there's this child that's just pouring love into you. Now, if it's a baby boy, culturally speaking, you know that child is going to be with you for the rest of your life. Because again, in the culture, the sons look after their parents. So here's this baby boy, and finally your love needs are getting met, right? And you know this child is going to stay with you, and so you pour everything you have into this child. As a woman, you just pour it in, and you get that reciprocity, and suddenly the focus of your love is your child. And this happens in many, many cultures where women focus their love attention on their children, and they don't really do so much of the building of intimacy with their partner, right? So the focus is downward rather than across. Now, what happens when that child grows up and they've been the source of all your love needs, and suddenly they bring in another partner who's not you, right? Suddenly all the needs that were getting met from the child are now not getting met because that child has their own relationship, their own marriage, if you will. Well, if that's your only source of love, you're going to fight for it, right? And how do you fight for it? You demonize the other, right? And so usually with clients, I draw this up in a chart, like mother and father are not very well bonded. And so mother overbonds with child. And so the main bonding relationship happens this way, right? Then new partner comes in and this relationship is too strong. So this relationship doesn't really have a chance. And the role modeling is, this relationship doesn't matter anyway. The husband-wife relationship is not where the primary love needs are getting met. It's with the children. And so then the generation repeats itself, and the woman who's come into the household does the same thing with her children, and so it goes. And so this is kind of based on Freud's principle of the Oedipus complex, which is, it's a bit more kind of intense and complicated, the way that Freud described it, but to keep it really simple is that we have these kind of unconscious relationships with our parents, And we have to kind of bust through those in order to move into maturity. So your mother-in-law is driving you crazy. What I would suggest is part of it might be around some unspoken competition that's going on between her and you. So one of the things that I was advised to do when I got married, or before I got married, by my wise mother, is to just not compete. Just refuse to compete with your mother-in-law for your husband's attention, for your children's attention. You mentioned that your kids love her, right? And so that's important for you to be aware of, because your attitude towards her, they will pick up on it, right? Even if it's not verbal, even if it's not out loud, they will pick up on that discomfort that you feel when she's around. And so how do you get to a truce if she doesn't want to change? Well, it only takes one person. It only takes one person to say, hey, I'm not going to play this game anymore. Whatever it is that we're playing, I'm not going to do it. And one of the ways I think of it is to see your mother-in-law as a mom. So when I think about my own mom, like, we have a relationship where I could say, hey mom, like, don't. I might not say that as directly to my mother-in-law, but if I can see her impulses as coming from the same place, right? As coming from wanting to help, wanting to be supportive, wanting to share her wisdom. Maybe, noticing that as she moves into her grandmotherhood, there's a lot she has to leave behind. So there may be a grieving process around that. So really trying to get into the mind of your mother-in-law, which is, yes, you are going to have to be the bigger person. And usually the people who come to me, the people who ask these questions, are willing to be the bigger person and probably have always had to be the bigger person. But bottom line is, if she doesn't want to change, or if she doesn't think there's anything wrong, nothing changes unless you make a change, right? So that's what I would say about how do you kind of come to terms, and where some of it comes from. Just when you can start understanding that much of this is just intergenerational, right? So she was treated badly by her mother-in-law. That's the role modeling she got. So she ends up treating you badly as your mother-in-law. Then that's the role model you're getting. And then to be really mindful when you become a mother-in-law, to just not do that, to not play that game, to not compete for the love, right? There's enough love to go around. There's more than enough love to go around. And if there's not enough love from your husband to go around, then, I'm assuming husband, if there's not enough love from your partner, well, then that's something to look at, right? Sometimes it's easier to make the bad guy another family member than actually look at what's going on in the partnership or the intimate relationship. So those are my thoughts for today around mother-in-laws. Please let me know if you have questions, further questions, or other questions. Put them in the comments below. Like and subscribe to our channel so you can keep getting more of this good, juicy stuff. And I'll see you next time. Bye.